Hey, curious minds, welcome back to Intriguing Info, the channel where we dig up the craziest, weirdest, and most mind-blowing stories from history, science, and beyond. I'm your host, and today, we're blasting off, literally, with a story that sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie but is 100% real. Did you know that the United States once had a plan to nuke the moon? Yes, the moon. Why would anyone think that's a good idea? Let's find out. Buckle up, because this is about to get wild. Alright, let's rewind to the 1950s. It's the height of the Cold War, and tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union are skyrocketing. The space race is in full swing, with both superpowers vying for technological and military supremacy. The Soviets shocked the world in 1957 by launching Sputnik, the first ever satellite, into orbit. For the US, this was a massive wake-up call. Suddenly, they weren't just worried about nukes, they were worried about space nukes. And in their quest to show the world who was boss, the US cooked up a plan so crazy, it's hard to believe it wasn't just a bad Hollywood script. Enter Project A119, also known as a study of lunar research flights. Doesn't that sound harmless? Spoiler alert, it wasn't. The goal of this top-secret project, launched in 1958 by the US Air Force, was to detonate a nuclear bomb on the moon. Why? Well, two reasons. To show off American power and make it clear to the world, and the Soviet Union, that the US was the ultimate superpower. To study the effects of a nuclear explosion in a low-gravity, low-atmosphere environment. You know, for science. Yeah, because nothing screams peaceful space exploration like nuking the moon. Now, let's talk about the logistics. The plan was to launch a small nuclear bomb, equivalent to the one dropped on Hiroshima, toward the moon. The bomb would detonate on impact, creating a massive explosion that would be visible from Earth. The US wanted to put on a show that the whole world could see, like a cosmic fireworks display, but, terrifying. But this wasn't just about making a big boom. Scientists were genuinely interested in the data they could collect, like how nuclear explosions behave in space and how lunar soil might react to such a blast. Among the scientists working on the project was none other than Carl Sagan, who later became one of the most famous science communicators of all time. Yep, even Sagan was involved in this lunar lunacy. Now, you're probably wondering, why didn't this actually happen? First off, thank goodness it didn't. As the plan was developed, it became clear that nuking the moon was a terrible idea for several reasons. International backlash. Blowing up part of the moon might not sit well with, well, literally anyone. Environmental concerns. Scientists worried about radioactive debris falling back to Earth or lingering in space. Public relations disaster. Even in the Cold War era, the idea of destroying a celestial body that humans had admired for millennia just didn't feel right. People love the moon. It's romantic, poetic, and central to countless myths and cultures. Can you imagine if the US had nuked the moon, and instead of Neil Armstrong's "one small step for man," we got, oops, we blew up a crater? Not a great look for humanity. So, after much debate, Project A119 was scrapped in 1959. Cooler heads prevailed, and the US decided that a nuclear moon explosion wasn't the best way to flex on the Soviets. Instead, they focused on sending a man to the moon, a goal that was finally achieved in 1969 with the Apollo 11 mission. And honestly, isn't planting a flag way cooler than planting a mushroom cloud? Although Project A119 never got off the ground, it left behind a fascinating legacy. It's a stark reminder of how extreme the Cold War really was, with both superpowers willing to push the boundaries of reason and science to prove their dominance. It also shows how far we've come in our approach to space exploration. Today, space is seen as a place for collaboration, not destruction. But here's the kicker: for decades, the existence of Project A119 was classified. It wasn't until the 1990s that the details were declassified and made public. So, for all those years, the world had no idea how close we came to turning the moon into a cosmic testing ground. So, what can we learn from this? Well, first, history is full of wild ideas, some brilliant, some absolutely bonkers. Project A119 falls squarely in the "what were they thinking" category. But it's also a reminder of how much humanity's perspective has changed. Instead of nuking the moon, we now dream of colonizing it, studying it, and maybe even living on it one day. The moon represents possibility, wonder, and exploration, and I, for one, am glad it's still up there, unnuked and shining brightly in our night sky. Thanks for watching this episode of Intriguing Info. If this story blew your mind as much as it did mine, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a single wild story from history. And let me know in the comments, what's the craziest Cold War plan you've ever heard of? Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep looking up at the moon, and be glad it's still in one piece.